In most federal criminal cases, the very first decision that a judge has to make is whether the person that's charged with a crime should be released or stay in jail. It's called the detention hearing, and it's what we're talking about in this week's video, so stick around. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're having a great week and getting ready for another good weekend. Like I said in the introduction, this week we're talking about federal detention hearings. Now, we're just going to hit the very surface of these because detention hearings are complicated, they're nuanced. You could do a whole lecture series on what to expect at a detention hearing, how to prepare for a detention hearing, and everything in between. So what a detention hearing is really the first step in a federal criminal case. When somebody gets arrested and charged with a federal offense, they must be brought in front of a magistrate court within a reasonable amount of time, typically within 72 hours. When they go in front of that magistrate judge, the magistrate does something called an initial appearance and arraignment. That's where the magistrate judge makes sure that the individual arrested knows and understands what they have been charged with. It's also when they first enter a plea of not guilty. And finally, it's where the court will determine if you have a lawyer, are planning on hiring a lawyer, or if the court should appoint a lawyer for you. So once those preliminary issues are done, the court then turns its attention to whether or not a person should be released while the case is pending. Now, by default, if nothing else changes, the system is set up for the person to be released on what are called conditions of release. In other words, rules that they have to follow while the case is going on. So if nothing else happens, there's nothing weird about the case, that person's going to be released. In Texas, at least, they're generally going to be released without having to post a bail or money or anything like that. They're just going to get released on conditions, on rules. Now, the government, in any case, could ask the judge to detain the person pending sentencing. The reason that a government would ask a judge to detain somebody is because the government would argue that that person is either A, flight risk, meaning they're going to run from the jurisdiction, they're going to flee the country, or B, they are a danger to the community. And if either of those things are true, then the judge and the court has the right to detain that person, to say, you have to stay in jail while this case is pending. Now, if the government makes that type of motion, if they say we want detention, then the defendant has a right to have a hearing on that issue, a full-blown hearing with witnesses, with evidence, with arguments, and all that stuff. So if somebody that you know has been arrested and charged with a federal crime, make sure you ask their lawyer about that detention hearing, what you can do to prepare for it, what you need to put together in terms of witnesses, who needs to be present, what documents you can get them, because that detention hearing is going to be key in making sure that they get released while the case is going on. So, like I said, this is just a bare bones introduction to what a detention hearing is and what a judge is looking to decide. We can go into incredible detail about detention hearings and what all the rules are and what types of detention hearings happen, what witnesses would make sense. We can do that, and if that's something that interests anybody, please feel free to drop a comment or send me a message, and I'm happy to do a series of videos on those if there's an appetite for it. But for now, I just wanted to kind of introduce you to the concept because it is very different from the state side where you get arrested, you post bond, you get out, that's kind of the end of it. It's different. And so the federal side, it has its own weird, unique set of rules that most people aren't aware of. As always, if you have any questions about this or anything else, please feel free to send me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to discuss this or anything with you. But until I see you next time, I hope you have a great weekend, a great week. Stay good and stay on the right side of the bars.